It's a way of your spirit team working with you to develop your skills. And you may not, during sitting in the power, feel anything in particular, anything different, but there's stuff going on in the background. Like I know sometimes, well, sometimes often when I start doing a sitting in the power meditation, um, I know from one of my spirit guides, his calling card to let me know he's with me is I start feeling him brushing, my face, the side of my face, one or the other.
Welcome to Soul Explorers with your hosts, Gary Langley and Sally Taylor. Welcome to Soul Explorers. Sally and I are pleased to have as our guest today Susin Micallef. Susin is a medium. She also teaches mediumship. And Susin, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's so great to be here. Love to see you.
We're so pleased to see you again as well. Do us a favor, Susin, and start us off by just giving us a little bit of your backstory and how you became a medium, because this is not something that everybody experiences.
I guess we can say that from early childhood, I was aware of the spirit world and things would happen. I'd know things, I'd see things before they happened. And, I was a little fearful. I kind of questioned if I was losing my mind or if there was something wrong with me because this wasn't something we talked about in our family. It was kind of like a taboo subject. So I really wonder, like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? And as I got older and things continued to happen, I got a little less fearful, especially when a family member passed and she appeared in my bedroom. And with the time difference and everything, when she appeared in my bedroom was the time that she actually passed. We found out the next morning. And that really was like, whoa, wow, this is like going a little further. So I just kind of, bumbled along wondering what was going on. And it wasn't until a few years ago, so well into my adulthood, that there was kind of like a series of events that happened that then led me to formal training and people, and it's just been incredible ever since because doors keep opening, things keep happening in different ways on a grander scale. And I really do follow my intuition. So um, I started off with a spiritualist development circle and practicing and learning that way, reading books, developing my network. And then in December 2023, I got this strong feeling that I needed to upgrade my Zoom account to a full paid account. And I didn't know why, I didn't have any reason to. Um, but I thought, okay, this is a sign I'm paying attention. I want you, universe, spirit team, to know I'm paying attention. So I did it. I upgraded. And then, yeah, doors opened even more because instead of doing readings sort of in my own local geography and network, I was now able to start doing readings for people anywhere in the world quite conveniently. And that just brought other opportunities as well. So it's been interesting, it's been exciting, and I'm relieved and happy to know there's nothing wrong with me. Like,
Well, yeah, and Susin, I wanted to ask, do you feel that some form of mediumship is available to everyone?
yeah, I think at the core of it, there's intuition. And I think that that is universal with everyone. It's, to me, like a basic human survival instinct. And I think, though, the challenge is that a lot of people these days are disconnected from themselves, so they don't really notice their intuition or pick up on it, or if they do, they don't trust it.
And if you don't use it, it atrophies, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I finished reading a really good book recently, Portals by Freddie Silva. And in that book, he talks about how um, people a long time ago were so much more attuned to earth and nature's rhythms that they knew where ley lines, energy lines were located and things like that. And that's a connection that many of us have lost. Yeah.
So, what do you tell people who have an interest in developing their own intuition? Are there tools that you share? And is there anyone who is not a good candidate for studying mediumship or doing that kind of development?
I'd say that anyone who's closed-minded to the mystical, anything out of their normal everyday kind of thinking, reasoning, beliefs in science, that kind of thing, or religion, I think that limits a person and they'll struggle. They'll deny and just they're shut down. They're shut down from the possibilities of things happening and the things that may actually be happening. They just don't see them or feel them.
But for those who feel like they may be connecting it to their personal intuition or their personal access to, you know, disembodied loved ones, where should they start with beginning to open those skills?
Well, I'm a really big fan of spiritualist development circles. And not just because that's where I started out in my formal kind of training, but I believe they're a great place for anyone starting out to start their journey because let's take a step back. So, spiritualist development circles are run by spiritualist organizations, churches. Some call themselves churches, some organizations, but the core is the religion of spiritualism, which is all about demonstrating that there's life after life. So after our physical life body ends here, our life carries on in the spirit world. And a part of their services, and sometimes there's Sunday services. I go to a spiritualist church that also has services on a Friday night. So as part of their services, they will have the individual who's giving the inspirational address give mediumship readings right there on the platform. So they strongly believe in life after life, and they help people develop their ability to connect to the spirit world. And so they can offer workshops and one-day training programs and things like that. But on a regular basis, they have these things called development circles. And they can be an hour or 2 hours. But typically the program is that there's an introduction and maybe a very brief little lesson or Q&A period about something related to mediumship or what people experienced in the week before. And then there's a meditation. After the meditation, there's some discussion, sharing. Individuals can share their experiences, what they saw, heard, felt, anything during the mediumship. And then there may be an exercise or two to practice and develop that mediumship skill. So that's the core program. It varies from organization to organization, but these weekly development circles are a great way to get regular training for an hour or two. It's wonderful to be connected with a steady group of people and the group energy you develop in that circle, which helps with the individual development as well. You make friends, you get to know that, what you're seeing and experiencing is normal and great. And another big bonus is that they tend to be very affordable. I have found development circles through spiritualist churches are so inexpensive, and even their workshops are very affordable. So I'd say the first place really is to start with a spiritualist development circle. If you have one you can access in your neighborhood in person, that's great. But don't be disappointed if there are no spiritualist churches nearby, because there are all kinds of them offering online development circles as well. So you can find one halfway around the world if it works with the time zone and differences and all of that. You can practice in a regular development circle anywhere in the world. So I encourage people to look beyond their immediate neighborhood or geography and connect to others around the world.
I have a sneaking suspicion that there are a lot of home circles too, but they're not very public about it. That they're a tight-knit group of people that maybe have been sitting for some time, but they're not advertising that they do so. Do you think that is also true?
It's the case because, let's be realistic. The three of us are very comfortable talking about all of this and comfortable with spiritual and mystical paranormal experiences, but there are a lot of people who aren't. And I think especially with the physical development circles, they are a little bit more on the down low because of people's perceptions and incorrect beliefs, really and truly, in my opinion.
Well, let's clarify real quickly, because the development circles you're talking about through a spiritualist church, say, are for mental mediumship, correct?
That's right.
Which
Yes,
means that you are bringing through messages from
that's right.
across the veil, if you want to call it that.
That's right. As opposed to creating any physical phenomena
Much
or
more rare.
apports or anything like that. Yes.
Physical phenomena and physical mediumship. I think there's maybe a handful of people on the planet right now who are really, really accomplished at that. Um, and it can lend itself, I mean, and has in the past, to deception and fraud, but
Mhm.
there are real physical mediumships. I've experienced it, and there's
Mhm.
no way for I mean, you would be making big money somewhere if it was fraud, because
Yeah.
I've seen things that just boggle the mind. So,
Yes. I would love to experience some of that firsthand in a group. Because I know I started with my meditation practice. I started to get physical sensation, like my left hand would get wet.
mhm.
And it wasn't just like sweat, it was wet. And this was happening, and I thought, I'm not ready to go down this path of physical mediumship. I'm fascinated by it. In time, I think I will pursue it, but it comes down to time, right? There's a whole lot of stuff going on all the time. And my first love is mediumship.
And I suspect, and so I'm making a prediction here, that down the road that you are going to find that you have physical mediumship abilities. Let's
Thank
just
you.
put that out there. So,
We'll see.
yeah.
Thank you.
If someone does struggle, though, to find a spiritualist circle, what other things might they do to begin
Okay.
to develop themselves? Are there other
There's
places that they can also look?
there are lots of things somebody can do for their development. And well, I guess the most obvious would be to get into workshops and seminars, formal training with mediums. But I'd say before taking that step, I think it's wise to do a little bit of research. And by research, I mean a lot of the top mediums, starting mediums, mediums in general, offer information that's free online. So whether it's a podcast or it's a YouTube channel, I think, and Soul Explorers, it's a great place to come in, listen to speakers, individuals come in and get to know them. So the research is getting to know this medium and their style and what they're teaching, and if you feel some sort of connection with them. If they've written a book, buy the book or borrow the book from a friend or a library, that kind of thing. Talking to your other medium friends and colleagues, they can be a great resource to give you insights about individuals and the way they teach or their workshops and how they run them. Like, is somebody running a 2-hour, 3-hour workshop and spending 15 minutes giving a lesson, and the rest of the time you're in breakout rooms practicing with people and kind of fumbling along? So I think it's important to do your research and look at and access all of the free resources that are out there and available to us. And then when you think you might like to start studying with an individual, take a workshop or two. Invest just a few hours and a few dollars before you get into like a full-on mentorship. If you really want to be like a serious medium, getting into a mentorship is great for that constant development and feedback, if it's a mentorship program where you actually have an interaction with the teacher, the leader. So I think it's important to do a little bit of homework before you start taking workshops, because you can spend all kinds of time and loads of money going here and there and everywhere, like, oh my gosh, this is great, this individual, and then this one, and you're getting all these little snippets and tidbits, but you may not necessarily be getting like fulsome training to help develop whatever aspect that workshop was about. And so practice is a big thing. I can talk a little bit more about practice. So you go to these workshops, you read these books, you do all these things, and that's great. But I think along with that learning, the formal learning, comes informal learning and practice. Informal learning through practice. So practicing with other mediums is very important. I think you both agree, and you know my perspective, that it's an important part of the growth mindset for any medium who would like to undertake it seriously and potentially make a business out of it as well. So it's important. I really want to clarify that I make the point of practicing with other mediums, because if you're practicing on family and friends, you may not be really challenging yourself enough to develop, because you know them really well. They're spirit people, right?
Yep.
So then you have to wonder, the information you're giving, is it because you actually know it, you have memories of it, or is it coming through spirit? So for real and proper practice, I think you need to work with other mediums, and mediums who will then give you good feedback, because they understand the process and they can give you that feedback to help you with your individual development. So I started the Practice Place. It's an online forum for intermediate and advanced mediums to come together once a month for 45 minutes. So it's not a huge time commitment. Come in, we do a 20-minute practice each of mediumship or psychic work. And again, it's that forum to be able to practice with other mediums. And I'm going to say that all are welcome. I say intermediate and advanced because I don't want anyone thinking that there's any formal instruction. So that's why, like, I don't say I haven't been publicizing as a practice place for everyone because even though I have in marketing it said it's for intermediate and advanced level mediums, I have individuals contacting me saying, well, I'm just starting out. Can I come and get some lessons? And I explain that this is not a formal teaching place. It's really a practice place.
I think one thing that's really important is the level of dedication. Don't pursue this as a passing thing, a peripheral thing that you're doing. You have to really have an inner drive, because I think the other side won't waste their time with you if you're not really serious about doing it. So
Yeah, and when you think about it, the place to practice is with other mediums, not when you're giving a client reading, especially if it's somebody who's paying you. That's not the place. So when you dedicate and set aside time to practice, that's a sign to your spirit team. Okay, I'm here, I'm serious, I'm committed. As you said, Gary, bring it on, bring me the next challenge, help me to grow and develop. And you create that stronger bond with your spirit team, in my opinion. Anyway, I really, really believe in the value and importance of practice. And well, I mean, that's partly my personality as well. I am a forever student. I love learning. I will always be learning and trying to get better at whatever it is that I'm doing. And I personally spend about 15 to 20 hours a week on my personal mediumship development. That includes practices and reading and just different things to help me with my knowledge and development.
I think that's a really good description of what it takes to become a medium, because it does take a lot of concentrated effort and focus. However, if somebody wants just to connect to their own loved one, because not everybody wants to be a medium per se, but there's a lot of people who want to be able to trust the communications that they receive from their own loved ones. Do you have any advice for that group of people?
Yeah, definitely, because I realize not everybody is doing this to become a medium and working with the public. So for anyone who's looking to strengthen their own connection to the spirit world, for somebody that they miss, and would like to be able to communicate or connect with them, I'd say start off doing things like development circles. So you start becoming aware of your own energy and sensing energy and that kind of thing. And then take some workshops, see who you click with. Supplement all of that by watching videos from mediums and psychics and people who are doing it and have the experience, the knowledge, the practical abilities. So learn that way and find somebody who you connect with. You don't have to go on a full-on mentorship. You may find, and see, this is the challenge. We all develop at different rates. We all have different strengths and different interests. So somebody may be already highly intuitive and able to connect quickly with someone in spirit. Someone else who needs to work on their intuition, needs to really get into it from that ground foundational level. So actually, I guess I should have started by mentioning that. Start with developing an intuition. And it doesn't have to be intuition necessarily with the spirit world. You can start practicing and developing your own on your own through little exercises like a deck of cards, playing a game where, okay, you've got a card face down. Is it red or black? Is it a face card? Putting your hand on it, feeling into the energy. You can go and buy all kinds of bundles, I guess you can say, where there are intuition development cards for colors, numbers, signs, symbols, with a little workbook. You can find those online at bookstores in your neighborhood, that sort of thing. Those are really good avenues as well to kind of just start the process, right?
That's really great advice. And in fact, that is very much the way I personally started, in that I read somewhere that tarot cards were a good way to develop intuition. And I thought, well, at the very least, I'm a good student. You know, I can play with this. And I like to use the word play, because having sort of a light, easy feeling about what you're doing and what you're working on is helpful as well. But I found that, holy cow, you could start looking at this imagery and information comes. And so do you have any other tools that you personally have used in your own development, or that you use in your mediumship?
I highly recommend meditation.
Mhm.
And meditation and sitting in the power. And they're a little different. But learning to practice mindfulness and stilling the mind, I think, are very important, because if you can't be present and if you can't still your mind enough to be aware of what's going on around you and what you're feeling and what your body may be feeling, then you're going to miss signs and messages in developing a connection with the spirit world. So I really, really believe in meditation. Now, I know it can be very difficult, and it's something, though, that an individual can work on bit by bit. No one says you have to sit down and meditate for an hour when you're starting out. Sit down for 5 minutes. And if you can't do it on your own, then you know what? Use some of the resources that are available online. Like, I'm a big, big fan, and I recommend this to a lot of people and clients who I give readings to, who feel like some sort of heightened intuition. I recommend Insight Timer. It's an app. They have free and paid versions, and they have all kinds of meditations. So music, guided, 5 minutes, 3 hours. There's a really good selection, and it's a nice way to start meditation with help from something like that. And Insight Timer is my favorite. I know there are others out there. So I just say, find one that you like, that you're comfortable using, and give it a go. Give it a try.
Susan, have you ever worked with the hemisync methods, the binaural beats? I know
All the
Suzanne
time.
Eastman does use that also. And that is sort of a balancing of the left and right hemispheres of the brain, which, and I also wanted to say, if you think you don't have intuition, and this is for our viewers, everybody has had the experience of thinking about someone they haven't spoken with for a long time, and the phone rings and it's them.
Exactly.
So there's an example of your intuition. You just need to sharpen it. So
Exactly. Or you walk into a room, whether it's at a family gathering or in a workplace, in a meeting situation, you walk into a room and all of a sudden it's just like, whoa, we've got some not so happy vibes going on here. Like, what's your intuition?
sure, sure. No, we've all experienced that. And so what we're talking about here is really fine tuning that. And
Exactly.
and then, I'm not one that always sits down for a formal meditation, but I kind of feel like I'm always in meditation on some level, that I kind of move through life with that. So, but I do sit down at times and just really focus, and I think it's important. I think it's
Great. Well, I do like meditations at different times of the day for different reasons. but I also almost on a daily basis, like I'm going to say like 6 out of every 7 days, I sit in the power.
Uh-huh. Now,
And again,
explain for the audience what sitting in the power is
yes,
as opposed to what we consider formal meditation.
right, right. So sitting in the power is something that mediums tend to do, should do. I guess it depends on your individual perspective, but it is a time to quiet and still yourself, become aware of your energy, connect to a higher energy, like the divine and your spirit team. And it's a way of, how do I put this? It's a way of your spirit team working with you to develop your skills. And you may not, during sitting in the power, feel anything in particular, anything different, but there's stuff going on in the background. Like I know sometimes, well, sometimes often when I start doing a sitting in the power meditation, um, I know from one of my spirit guides, his calling card to let me know he's with me is I start feeling him brushing, my face, the side of my face, one or the other. And sometimes okay, you can't tell here today because I just got my hair cut and my hair done, but I have very curly hair. And sometimes I can feel somebody playing, with my hair. And it's like, okay, I know you're here, you're with me. That's great. So it's a very subtle way of connecting with your spirit team and developing your abilities.
Yeah.
I think the way to differentiate that is through intention. I mean, because it's not that dissimilar from meditation. So my intention is to connect with my team. And I think that intention is the deciding factor for sitting in the power or just a meditation where you're balancing your own chakra system and grounding. And
Yes.
so, yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
you had such a good way of describing the subtle nature of the way that communication comes. And I think that's where a lot of people maybe have a misconception. They think, oh, I'm going to hear an actual audible voice, or it's going to I'm going to see something that's, that other people don't see. And it's not necessarily like that. It can very often just be a tingle if it's clairsentience. It can be what feels like a thought that might not be your own. There's lots of different subtle ways that spirits communicate, and it's that learning to trust that subtle communication. So
Yeah,
often people who say, oh, I don't get anything. Well, it's not that they don't get anything. It's that they blow it off as being not significant or not a shocking or surprising enough experience that they
exactly.
can accept it.
They're expecting something really grand and earth-shattering rather than looking for the very soft, subtle signs.
Right.
From one of the clairs, just feeling it around you, feeling your power. Like the funny thing is, a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking at a spiritualist church. And so I gave the inspirational address and then I gave readings from the platform. And before I started, uh, I wasn't feeling anything. And I thought, oh gosh, oh gosh, oh gosh, oh no, like I'm in front of people, like, I know spirit team, you're not going to let me down, but this is the ego, the fear-based part of me coming
Of
out.
course.
And I got up there and I started giving the readings and they went really well. And afterwards, the reverend who was sitting kind of beside me there on the platform, she said, boy, oh boy, can I feel the power coming off you from behind you. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting because I wasn't feeling that in the moment at all. I was not aware of it because my mind was more focused on connecting and communicating with each individual in spirit who was coming through to connect with a loved one in the congregation. So it can be very subtle. And if you're not open in that awareness for it to come through, you might not notice it.
Right. So describe some of the ways that you actually do perceive. What are your clairs?
Well, for me, uh, claircognizance and clairvoyance have been my strongest and my initial experiences with the spirit world. So clairvoyance is seeing. So whether I'm giving a mediumship reading or just hanging out at home, I can see people in spirit. So that's clairvoyance coming through like your third eye.
Right. Do you see them exterior to yourself, like objectively, or do you see them in your mind's eye?
Both, both.
Okay.
So when I'm in a reading, like I typically see them standing to my right hand side. But I've been, out shopping and walking along the sidewalk, and all of a sudden I see an uncle of mine in spirit who's been gone a long time, walking along, giving me the goofy grin he used to always have. And it's just like, okay, right. And clear cognizance. This is where an individual might really question their sanity, because you just have these thoughts. They just pop into your head. They can be precognitive. So it can be a thought about something that is going to happen later. But at the time you're like, "Oh, I don't know." Or the phone rings and you instantly know, oh, I know it's so and so. And sure enough, it's them. So claircognizance is a knowingness that pops into your head. And years ago, I went to a medium. She's I'd say quite well known in the international community. And she looked at me and kind of stopped and paused. And she gave a reading like I've never experienced before or since, because it was like boom, 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 lightning fast and just all over. But before she started, she looked at me and her exact words were, and she pointed and she said, "You know shit, but you don't know how you know that shit, don't you?" And I was like, uh, yeah, I do. Like, I couldn't believe like she was so blunt and just straight out with it. And it was kind of funny and entertaining, and that's always stuck in my mind. So to me, that's what claircognizance is in those colorful terms.
Right.
But as I've developed, and this is part of my spirit team teaching me, when I'm practicing, the clairvoyance and the claircognizance tend to kind of quieten. And so I'm having more experiences where I'm tasting or hearing. So I'm glad for that. Other things will happen, like sometimes I can get a feeling like, oh, that person had a heart problem. Or I'll smell like there's one of my grandfathers who, I mean, I love them both dearly, but this one particular grandfather had a certain fragrance about himself. Well, both my grandfathers had different fragrances. When I smell like carnations, I know it's him because he used to grow a lot of carnations, and I love those flowers. The other has a different scent to him. And every now and then, like when I get a whiff of it, I'm like, okay, I know you're with me. I'm glad. I'm just going to sit with this. So the clairs are always there. All the clairs are, I think, for everyone, not just me, but for everyone. And in different situations, one may be stronger than the other, or I should step back and clarify, it's not going to necessarily be just one of the clairs that you will experience. You're more than likely experiencing two or three at the same time. And it's hard to differentiate, am I hearing this or am I having a knowingness, right? Because they're all working together.
Sometimes when I get clairaudience, I can differentiate it by the fact that it's a phrase or several words that I would never use. And another way I can tell is they will often use my name first,
Nice.
because I do not think of myself by my name. I think of me or I. but never in my thoughts does my name really come up. And they will use my name, and that's a clear signal. And that's usually in a you want to watch out for this. You might want to watch out. They never tell me what to do. They always suggest. You might want to slow down. There's a car in your lane coming around a blind curve, and that
Yes.
actually has happened. So, and they've actually described the car, a gray Pinto, and a primered gray Pinto came around in my lane. So they can give you evidence. Um, but Neil Donald Walsh, who we recently interviewed, had a great term. And this really fits to me. It's like a voiceless voice sometimes. And other times it's very distinctly that like somebody's sitting next to you and you're hearing it outside of yourself. Do you
Yeah.
find that to be true? Do you have clairaudience and do you?
Yes, yes, I call that divine whispers.
Yeah.
When you get, that little few words or a phrase and you think, okay, yes. Or sometimes I hear Susan,
Yeah.
and it's just like, yes, and it's like, I know I'm by myself. Why am I looking around? But it's like, okay, you just called my name. Yes, okay, I'm going to stop and center myself. Thank you for reminding me that you're in my life and that you're with me right now. I get it when I'm awake. I get it when I'm asleep. But those divine whispers are those little messages that just come out of nowhere when you least expect it. And it's a very distinct sign from the spirit world that they're there with you, working with you, protecting you, whatever it may be. Like just recently, I was driving home. I was in the left turn lane. The light changed at the intersection. And normally I'd start moving forward, but I didn't. And it was a good thing I didn't. Something held me back. And I felt like I should take my time going into the intersection because then oncoming traffic, there was a collision. And if I would have done what I normally did, I would have gone straight into the pickup truck that was hit and came through the intersection. And I thought about that after and I was like, wow. Yeah, like, thank you. Thank you for that because I don't need to deal with all of that kind of stuff and kept me safe.
That's why I think this is such a normal human capacity and experience. Because I would say most people, even who don't have any belief or experience with mediumship or their personal intuition, they'll have some event that they can tell you very similar to that. Oh, I felt like I had to do this or I shouldn't do that, and it saved me in some way. It's a really universal experience.
And to relate a similar story, in my youth, I was probably 20 or 21. I had been living in Florida at that time and had a mattress on the floor in my bedroom. That was my bed, and it was a cold snap. And I kept moving a space heater closer and closer, and I had this big quilt on. And it was in the early dawn hours. It was as if there was a face this close to mine that yelled my name, Gary. And as I opened my eyes, the quilt blew up in flames. And I folded it over on itself, put out the flames, threw it out the window, and I could have burned, could have
Gosh.
burned. Fire has seemed to be a problem for me.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
But that's a
That's
clear, I mean, almost everybody has some instance like that in their life.
the way I look at it is we all have this superpower.
Yeah.
It's the superpower within, right? And I think that's a good name for a book. But anyway, we all have this superpower within us. Why would we not want to learn how to work with it, how to help us through life,
Right.
right? Like when I talk to some people and they're like, I don't believe in this stuff. I don't, like, like just doesn't seem real. It's not real. And what have you. And I think, well, sometimes I use the example of, and this is common, I'm sure you've heard of it, the microwave. You put something in the microwave, it heats up or it cooks. You don't see the rays of energy, but you know the energy is there working and doing its thing. And then it could be just a matter of terminology, because we'll talk about our aura. And to a lot of people, that's like really woo-woo kind of stuff, the aura. But scientists will call it the electromagnetic field, right? And then all of a sudden, like, oh, it's real. It's a thing. Just because there's a scientific term to it. It's the same thing,
Yeah.
just different terminology. So I really think that if people would tap into this superpower that they have within them, it can help them so much in life, with their health, with relationships, in their working careers, that kind of thing.
I think it leads us too to begin to realize that thoughts are things,
Mhm.
that what we're putting out into the world has a, an effect on what's coming back to us. So if we constantly say, "Oh, I could never do that. That never works for me," it won't. It won't.
Exactly.
Because you're creating that
Exactly.
circumstance. So,
Mhm.
Susan, I wanted to ask if people wanted to get a reading from you or join the practice room, how
Mhm.
do they find out about it?
Simply, I've got a fun, easy to remember email address, because it speaks to me, and it's I'm short. So my email address is 3 words, a short medium @gmail.com. And that's really the best way if somebody would like a reading, and thank you for offering this information to your viewers, or if they'd like to join the practice place, which is free, they're more than welcome to contact me and we'll go from there.
Great, great. And we'll put that in the notes and across the screen probably. So it's a short medium, right?
That's right, 3 words. Yeah, I did that. I thought it's easy to remember. So from a marketing perspective, it's easy to remember. It's easy to spell, because if I used my name, well, Susan with an I, most people are going to think that's a typo. And then my last name, Micallef, unless you're Maltese, it's not a common name and you're not going to know how to spell it. So I went with a short medium, because I find too, when I tell people about it, they kind of laugh. And if I'm telling it to them face to face, they're like, yeah, you are short. So it's like,
Okay, how tall are you?
on a good day, when I'm standing really up and upright, proper posture, I'm 5 feet tall.
Oh, wow. You are
You
a short
qualify.
medium.
Oh, Susan, you're absolutely delightful. I'm really grateful that you were willing to spend some time with us and tell us about your journey and your development and how you're helping others to develop as well.
Well,
Uh,
thank you both for doing the Soul Explorers podcast, which is fabulous. I love it. You have such a variety of speakers, um, coming on. And thank you for your openness and willingness to help people with their mediumship journey or connection to spirit. Because I kind of wish way back when I would have had clear information about what to do and how to go about becoming a medium, because you can spend a lot of time, and whatever you're learning, it will be useful and helpful, but you can spend a lot of money going down different routes. So thank you very much for helping people to develop their connection to spirit.
Well, thanks for all of the work you're doing. It's a collaborative effort to lift the planet up that we're all doing. So that's the goal. So thank you so much for being with us.
You. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this content, please hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications.